Okay, in this video, you're going to learn a new way of graphing lines. Now, remember those tables? I mean, you just took a test that had a problem on it. You had to graph an equation, y equals 3 times x plus 1, and then the graph always followed a straight line. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong, that table where you did 2 ones, or -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, that's beneficial anytime you got to get an equation onto a graph. But again, what did those lines do every time? Those points you graphed, they always followed a straight line. Now, tables are good, but we're going to learn a quicker, more efficient way to get an equation or a line graphed. Now, a line was moving up and forward at the same time, or sometimes it was moving down and forward at the same time. Therefore, you had a slope of the line. Now remember what a slope is. It's a ratio of rise over run. Now we're actually going to graph this equation using slope here. Now there's two things you're going to write down. You're going to write slope, and you're also going to write down y-intercept, just y-int. Those are the two things you're going to find. Now, this is going to be kind of weird at the start, but you'll appreciate it as we keep going forward. So it says y equals 3x plus 1. The slope is known as m. As far as why it's m, you'd have to ask big-time mathematicians. And the y-intercept is known as, you'd think it'd be y, but it's actually known as b. Okay? Y equals mx, so m is 3 plus b. And I'm going to say that. Y equals mx plus b. 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 Now the y-intercept is a number not being multiplied by x. Okay? That's a coordinate point. X, y. And it's always where the x is at 0. So what's the number not multiplied by x? It'd be 1. Okay? So that's a coordinate point. So I want you to graph that point. So I don't move forward or backwards, I just move up to 1. Okay? And that's where that point would be. Similar to how you'd use the tables, that point in the middle. Now you're going to get the subsequent points using slope. Okay? Now the slope is a ratio, as we've learned early on. It's the ratio of the rise over the run. Now the 3 is your rise. Now, since it's positive, it goes up, okay? Put an up arrow. Now, if this is a ratio, this 3, I need to put a 1 under it so I know what the other, remember, ratio, we're doing a lot of work with ratios. A ratio compares two different things, okay? It's how far the line goes up, but at the same time, it's how far the line goes to the right, okay? So what you do is you go from the first point right there, and you go up 3, right 1. Now do it again. Up 3, right 1. And 3 points is good enough. I'm going to take my ruler and connect those points. And that is a line. It's the same line that I would have had I generated a table. It's just a quicker way of doing it. Why? Okay, now the next one. You're going to want to put a 1 in front of your x, okay? Y equals m. M is -1, x plus b. Okay, so slope, y-intercept. Okay, again, the slope is the m, the y-intercept is the b. Okay, so the y-intercept, again, is that xy coordinate point. X is 0. It's like that middle point where the x is 0. Now, what's the number not being multiplied by x? It'd be 4. So 0, 4 is the y-intercept. Okay, so remember, again, one thing I see a lot of people do is they'll graph on the wrong line. No, this is the x, this is the y. So I don't move forward or backwards. I just go up 1, 2, 3, 4. Some y-intercepts there. Now again, we're going to use the slope from this point to get the rest of the points that I need to get the line. Okay, now remember the slope is a ratio. Okay, it's rise over run. So -1 is the rise. So that means actually it's not really a rise, it's going down. So it's a fall. Now, to make a fraction, you just put a 1 underneath. And that 1 there is always going to be positive. The bottom number is always going to be positive, which means you go to the right. The bottom number is never negative. Okay, so from this point, I go down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. Heck, I could do that all through the graph if I wanted to, but 3 points is good enough. Usually when I use the slope and the y-intercept, I just go with 3 points. Remember, arrows on both lines. So again, I don't even need a calculator to do this. It goes pretty quickly. Okay, y equals mx plus b. Okay. So this is, by the way, the name of this is called slope y-intercept form. So again, slope y-intercept. The y-intercept is called the y-intercept because it's where the line crosses this line here. That's why it's called the y-intercept. So again, xy, 0, and the number not being multiplied by x is 2. So 0, 2 is the y-intercept. Because if I would take negative 3 times 0 and add 2, negative 3 times 0 is 0 plus 2 is 2. So again, I don't move backward or forward. I just go up. That's a coordinate point. And then to get the rest of the points, I use slope. Now, negative 3 is your rise, but it's actually a fall because it's negative. And then 1, okay, put a 1 under, and the 1's positive. The bottom number is always positive, so we're always going to be going to the right. So from here, I go down 3 squares and write 1. Okay, and there we go. Really, it's pretty an easy process when you get the hang of it. It's the same. I'm trying to accomplish the same thing I did with that table. This is just a quicker way of doing it. Okay, y equals mx plus b. I know there's not a plus there, so the 5 is negative. Okay, so slope y-intercept. Again, the y-intercept is always the value that isn't being multiplied by the x, negative 5. Go. So I don't move left, I don't move right, I don't move forward, I just go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the line, we're going to start down there. Okay, now the slope. We got 2, it's positive, so that's a rise. And then 1 again is going to be our run. Again, we need the 2 to become a ratio, 2 to 1. To have a ratio, you need 2 values, 2 to 1. That means every time the line goes up 2, it goes 1 to the right. Every time it goes up 2, it goes 1 to the right. And you could do that a bunch of different times. So I take my ruler and graph it. Okay, next one. Y equals mx plus, and then put plus 0, because that's going to be our b. Mx plus b. So you got slope, y-intercept. Now, what's the point? What's the number not being multiplied by x? It'd be 0. Now, 0, 0 is right in the middle of the graph. That's where the 0, 0 is at. Now, the slope, we have negative 6 over 1. And that 1 is positive, so that goes forward. So from this point, I go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right 1. And I really don't have room to do it again, but that's okay. 2 points is good enough, okay? Because all I need to graph a line really is only 2 points. I know on the test you made 5 of them, but the line looks the same whether there's 2 or there's 5. And everywhere else on that line is a number if I plug in. Next one. This one looks a little bit different. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, so the y-intercept, okay? What's the number not being multiplied by the x? It'd be 7. Okay, so the y-intercept's 7. Again, the b is always going to be the y-intercept. As long as it's in this formation where you got y by itself equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, so I go up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now my slope. My slope's a fraction already, okay? a fraction and a ratio are basically the same thing. -1 is going to be your rise. So you go down 1, and then that 2 on the bottom is still positive. If the fraction has a negative in front of it, the negative is just with the top number. The bottom is still going to be positive. So I go to the right. Okay, so I already had the ratio right away. So I fall 1. Every time the line drops 1, it goes 2 to the right. Every time it drops 1, it goes 2 to the right. That's what a ratio is. Okay, it's comparing two quantities. In this case, it's comparing how far the line goes up or down with how far it goes to the right. Okay, next one. mx plus, and I put 0, that's the b, okay? So slope, y-intercept. Okay, so again, the y-intercept, what's the number not being multiplied by x? Well, it'd be 0, okay? There really isn't a number not being multiplied by x, so 0. So 0, 0 is here. Again, the slope. Now you see 1/4. So 1 is on top, it's positive, so it's up, and then 4 is how far the line moves forward. So every time the line moves forward, 4, it goes up 1, okay? So I go up 1, forward 4. Up 1, forward 4. There you go. Okay, last one, y equals -2/5 x plus 6. So you got m, b. Y equals mx plus b. So slope, y-intercept. So whatever's not being multiplied by x is 6. That's going to be your y-intercept. So x, y. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's where the line's going to cross the y-axis. Okay, my slope is already a ratio. Remember, the negative's with the top number. The bottom number is still positive, so it falls 5 and it goes to the right. Again, I can't emphasize that enough. When you see a negative, that's just with the top. The bottom's always going to be positive. Okay, so from that point, I go down 2, right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't have enough room to do it again because then I'm off the graph, but I can still just go with 2 points and it accomplishes the same thing as that table. Okay, that's all I have to say on that. Have a great week.